To begin the installation process, place a short 2x4 board or piece of 2x2 angle iron in front of each post. This will create a 1.5-inch space between the top of the curb and bottom of the panels. Also, set out 2 mounting brackets, 2 U-bolts, and 4 nuts at each post. Set the first panel on top of the spacers and align it with the posts. Slide the top and bottom mounting brackets onto the tapered end of the panel. The top bracket should be under the frame rail and the bottom bracket above the frame rail, with the flat side of the bracket against the post. Hand tighten the nuts and U-bolts as shown. After the first panel is in place, slide the next panel onto its rails and attach the mounting brackets on the next post. Hand tighten the U-bolts. Repeat this process until all of the panels have been installed. As you hang the panels, cut the tape off the lock rail and turn it over so the rounded side is down and the flat side is facing up. This is the lock position. After all of the panels have been hung, level them as needed. Have one person eyeball the frame rails and another adjust the panels up or down as required. Once the panels have been leveled, tighten the U-bolts on the mounting brackets. Tighten the U-bolt until the bracket starts to bend around the post. After tightening the brackets, secure the starter pipes provided to the female end of the line.
When you put your starter brackets and your starter pipes in, what we recommend is if you have a slope to your curb for your whole corral, we want you to put them on the uphill side on the very first section. You put the small one in the top, large one down in the bottom. Slide your bracket over it, put your U-bolt on. Make sure you get your nuts fairly tight when you put them on. And that'll keep your lockup from wanting to tip off of the curb. I recommend when you put your pipes in and your brackets on, leave your pipe just inside the outer edge of your bracket. That way, if you have a manway like this or a crossover, you don't snag it walking through. Just like the rest of your brackets and stuff that you put on from here on out, on your top one, raise your U-bolt up just a little bit. Tighten it down. Then on the starter end, you want to knock your whatever you're using for a spacer, knock it out after you tighten the top one. Then pull your U-bolt down. That way it pulls against the lockup good and tight. On your starters, I like to weld all the way around the top pipe, around the bottom pipe, and then put a weld here on your bracket where it connects with your lockup.
You can now position the lock rail and install the rotator handles. Handles can be placed anywhere and can run 200 feet of lock rail from each side. Slide the lock rail toward the location where the handle will be mounted until all of the joints down the line are lined up with the posts. Once all of the lock rail joints are lined up with the post, they can be welded together. After welding the top side of the lock rail, flip it over to weld the other side. Once all of the joints are welded, you're ready to mount the handle.
You want to put it on the female end of the lockup. And all you want to do is you want to make bolt holes here for your U-bolt. Clear your bracket. The handle always goes away from the post. Just mark your top rail and cut it, and then you can put your handle in. I prefer to put the pin through the handle, then into the bracket. Slide your U-bolt up through the holes. Put your lock nuts on. Take each side down evenly, and you want to make it to where it just does move. If you clamp them too tight, your handle will not roll smooth. This is the lock position. What you want to do, pull your top rail down, make sure it's centered in your catches above and below. What you want to do is you want to line the edges of your top rail up with the edges of the handle. Like that.
When welding the lock rail, make sure the flat side is up for the lock position. Also, make sure the bottom of the rail lines up with the bottom of the handle rod.
Keep your handle in place. We weld front on one side and back on the other. Take your pin out, weld the back side. After we're done welding, roll it, just make sure everything's running smooth and isn't hanging up anywhere. The pin and lanyard, you have holes here for either direction. Always put your ring on the feed side. You just open it up, twist it on, and there you have it.
Welds are done. They're cooled off enough that you can paint them. We use a silver metallic rust proofing paint. The wire brush off all the welds, give them a coat of paint.
The final step is to brush and paint the rotator handle assembly. Once this is completed, your headlocks are ready for cows.